mucho en la parte de Fortran, en programación de Fortran, porque yo soy un estudio macroestadístico con estadísticas del Banco Mundial y de UNESCO. Y en esa época no había programas como ahora que el SPS, programas de estadística. Todo había que programarse. Y Alan fue quien me apoyó sin ningún interés. Y Alan además era algo así como el secretario de Relaciones Internacionales de la Universidad de Sheffield, en Inglaterra, porque él organizaba reuniones especialmente con extranjeros y gente local, no sé, cuando menos 2 veces al mes, y eso hizo que creáramos una red de amistades, ¿sí? Entonces, a través de estos años hemos conservado esta amistad. Inclusive esta semana estamos teniendo una reunión de ex colegas de esa época. Está aquí Rose Longo, que viene de Brasil. Ella hizo el doctorado casi al mismo tiempo que yo, de Nueva Disciplina. Y agradezco mucho que Rose haya hecho el viaje especialmente para estar esta semana acá, ¿sí? También junto con Alan está Barbara Cohen, que viene que es de Canadá, está acá atrás, ¿sí? Barbara es bibliotecaria pública, ¿sí? Y trabajó en la Escuela de Bibliotecología. Yo work at the Library School en Halifax, ¿no? Tallahassee. Okay. Tenemos también aquí a José Pereira, que viene de Oporto, Portugal. Él también hizo el doctorado en Sheffield. Y está Franca Pereira, que está también de Portugal. Entonces, aprovechando que le hace esta visita, organizamos la conferencia, ¿sí? Y la segunda razón es que Alan y Bárbara fueron anfitriones de Alejandra Olivo, que fue orgullosamente mi estudiante de doctorado, aquí el doctorado de Sistemas y Ambientes Educativos. Su estancia de investigación la hizo en Canadá, y tanto Bárbara como Alan fueron muy amables en recibirla en su casa, conectarla con gente del área de fotografía, tanto de la ciudad como de la universidad. Y fue, creo que, una experiencia muy rica, ¿no, Alejandra? ¿Sí? Entonces, de alguna manera tenemos esa conexión, una por parte de mis estudios y Ale por su parte de haber estado con ellos el año antepasado. Hace 2 años, ¿no? Hace 2 años. Bien, otra persona que está detrás de esta conferencia es Sergio Lara, que es, Sergio, dime tu título, eres coordinador del área de artes, deportes y artes en la Facultad de Comunicación. Well, I have introduced everyone. I suppose you understood what I meant. Yeah. Sergio is our contact communication. Alejandra in the Faculty of Arts. So, the mic is yours, and I'll be trying to translate.
Good luck. Thank you all for coming today.
Gracias a todos por venir.
And thank you to Jesus for the invitation
Gracias a
to
Jesús por la
come and
invitación.
speak to you all.
Y voy a hablar a todos ustedes.
I understand that most of you have done a course on the history of photography.
Entiendo que la mayoría de ustedes han hecho un curso de historia de fotografía, ¿sí?
So what I'm going to do today
Así que lo que voy a hacer el día de hoy
is take you through a very small part of a project that I've been working on for the last 20
el día de
years.
hoy voy a cubrir solamente una parte de lo que he hecho en los últimos 20 años, 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So what I'm going to do,
Lo que voy a hacer,
imagine
imaginen
a piece of fabric,
una
piece of
tela,
textile,
¿sí? de
and
textil,
you have the warp threads, the
tienen
threads which
los
go
hilos,
down like on a loom,
como un círculo,
and you have the weft that goes across.
y los que van a
So
través.
any fabric is like this.
Cualquier tela es así.
Now think about the history of photography.
Piensen en la historia de la fotografía.
And if you did it,
Si usted lo hace,
yeah. So go forward, whoa.
es very sensitive. Es very sensitive.
Whoa. It's a quick lecture.
Es una conferencia rápida.
There.
Ahí. Mientras hacen esto, A mí se me pasó a presentarles, soy Jesús Lau, coordino el doctorado en Sistemas y Ambientes Educativos aquí en la Facultad de Pedagogía. El día que termine la licenciatura en fotografía, pueden hacer un doctorado en educación. ¿Sí? Es un doctorado de calidad.
Okay, we'll have to go back a bit. Right. Okay, we'll go back a little bit.
Vamos a ir hacia atrás un poquito.
Now, imagine this fabric.
Imagínense esta pieza de tela
Multiple layers of
que tiene
fabric.
muchas partes.
When you think about the history of photography,
Cuando piensan en la historia de la
the way we
fotografía,
do it is we break it up into a whole series of different
lo que
layers.
hacemos es
We think about
dividirlo en diferentes
the
partes.
timelines of photography.
Esas son cronología de tiempos.
And the date, the start of
Los
photography
años comienzan
is in the 1820s.
en los años 1820
And so we go right the way along until about the present day.
y llega en esa
But for
curvatura,
each
sí,
year,
que llega hasta el año
if we
2000.
take a year, like 1860,
Tomaremos como principio de 1800 y vamos a través de ello.
we get the date, we get
Tenemos la
the
fecha,
techniques and
tenemos las
processes.
técnicas y los
And the
procesos.
techniques and processes of what you've already studied.
Son
There's
las técnicas y
cyanotype,
procesos que ustedes ya han estudiado.
cyanotype, salt print, daguerreotype,
Daguerreotype,
Van Dyke
daguerrotipos,
prints, all the different processes.
los diferentes procesos.
And there are, well, maybe 50 major processes. There are a lot of different
Y debe haber
processes.
como 50 procesos.
What we then have to do is we have to think about how with those techniques and processes,
Tenemos que pensar cómo se
the
dan los
choices of
procesos,
the technique and processes affects
la
the
elección de los
themes.
procesos.
By themes, I mean
What
the
se
genres
llama
of
temas.
photography. So when you think about the genres of photography, you think
Si se
about
piensa,
portrait,
son-
landscape,
está hablando
all
de
scientific
fotografía,
photography.
panorámicas,
Yeah, the scientific photography. Yeah.
fotografía científica.
So what we have to do is
Lo que
we
tenemos
have
que
to
hacer
work out
es
which of these various techniques
Definir qué
is
técnica
appropriate for
es
each of these
apropiada
different
para cada
themes.
uno de estos temas.
So I set myself a problem.
Yo me puse elegí un problema.
What I wanted to do with my website,
Lo que
Luminous
quiero
Next,
hacer con mi página
was
web,
cover the entire history of
cubrir
photography.
la historia
So I
completa de la
want to cover
fotografía.
all the different techniques,
Así que
all
cubrir
the
todas las
areas of the
técnicas
world,
de
and
todas
all
las áreas
types of
del mundo
photography.
y de todo tipo de fotografías.
Now, as you know, this is totally insane.
Como ustedes sabrán, es una locura,
Totally insane. Nobody should do
completamente
this.
una locura.
Okay. But I started doing it, and I tried to
Pero
work
empecé a
out
hacerlo.
what I needed.
Lo que hice fue,
What I needed was a large collection of photographs to start with.
comencé con una
And
larga
to date,
colección de
I'm working with about
fotografías,
130,000 photographs
130,000
from
imágenes
all over the world.
de todo el mundo.
And these photographs come from a very large number of collections.
Y estas fotografías
Over
tienen
4,000
diferentes
different collections around the world.
coleccionistas, más de 4,000.
And we'll explain why this is so important later on.
Y
But
lo
if
que
you
hice
think
más
about
tarde,
major collections like the Metropolitan Museum of
las
Art,
mayores colecciones como el
the
Museo Metropolitano de Nueva York,
Arts, the
el
Victoria and Albert Museum in
el
London.
Museo Victoria y Alberto de
But there
Londres,
are hundreds of collections, and there are hundreds of
pero hay
collections
cientos
within
de
Mexico
colecciones,
as well.
por ejemplo en México.
Okay? So what I have to do is bring together images from each of
Lo
these
que he
collections,
hecho es traer
and then
imágenes
try
de
and work
cada una de
out
estas
all the
colecciones
connections between
y
these
todas las
photographs.
conexiones que tienen
Right?
estas
So
fotografías.
that's what I try to do.
Y es lo que traté de hacer.
The thing you realize is, as
Algo que
you're
ustedes
studying
deben
this
pensar,
the negative for the photograph may
el
be in one
negativo
collection,
de la fotografía,
but the positive
el
might be in a
negativo de
totally
la
different
fotografía
collection, in
puede
a
ser
different
uno,
country
y
or a
el
different
positivo debe
continent.
ser de otro país.
And this makes research very different,
Eso es
difficult, because they're absolutely scattered around the
porque
world.
están dispersas en el mundo.
What I try to do is
Lo
bring
que me
together
gustaría
the
hacer
connections.
es reunir
So I not only
cuáles
want
son las
the negative,
conexiones entre
I
una y
want
otra,
the positive,
en
and
el
how the
negativo,
photograph has actually been
negativo,
printed in
positivo, en
publications.
donde se publicó,
For example, it may have been
por ejemplo,
reprinted in the journal,
en una
as a
revista,
lithograph, or as an
como
engraving,
fotografía,
or a
como un
woodcut.
grabado.
So what I need to do
Lo
is
que voy a
think
hacer
about the major photographers
pensar a los diferentes fotógrafos
in the history of photography.
en la historia de la fotografía.
And what I deal with about 22,000 different photographers.
Lo que hice con 22,000
Now, the
fotógrafos,
22,000 photographers But those photographers have 45,000 different names.
Pero esos fotógrafos tienen 45,000 nombres
It's
diferentes,
complex.
lo cual lo hace esto complejo.
So what I try to do is organize
Lo
the
que traté de
information.
hacer es organizar esta información.
Imagine this is like a
Imagínense
puzzle. Like,
un
like imagine a puzzle, like
crucigrama,
a jigsaw. I don't know what the Spanish for jigsaw is.
un rompecabezas.
Okay, it's like having a jigsaw
Es como
where an
tener un
enormous
rompecabezas
number of pieces are
con
missing.
muchas piezas que están,
Okay?
que
Now
están
imagine you
perdidas.
had one jigsaw and then you
Usted
put
tiene
another
una
jigsaw
pieza,
on top of it and
pones
another
otra,
jigsaw on top of
una
it.
pieza sobre
Okay?
otra,
And there are pieces missing in each of these jigsaws.
pero en estos
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm
rompecabezas
trying to put
hay
all
piezas
these
que están
jigsaws together
perdidas.
and make it coherent. So for each photographer,
Así que por
what
cada
I'm trying to
fotógrafo
do is provide a certain amount of information.
puse una información básica,
Biographical information, the major themes.
información biográfica, temas que trabajaron.
Maestro, un segundo. Tiempo, por favor. Mire usted. Usted está traduciendo al ponente, pero se está traslapando. Entonces, yo sé inglés, yo estoy en Canadá. Ni lo oigo a él, ni lo oigo a usted.
El problema es
Entonces, mire, yo lo que creo es que el ponente debería de decir un parrafito, esperar tantito para que usted lo traduzca y luego él continuar, porque si no, es un relajo, de verdad, créame. O sea,
Okay, here's a suggestion. You should do
Ok, les preguntaría a los estudiantes en
look,
simultáneo.
mister, I told the teacher that you are translating the English and Spanish.
At the same time, yeah.
I
Don't
neither
understand.
hear
Right.
you nor him. That's why I asked him that if you please, you can talk a little paragraph,
Yeah.
and then he will
That's fine, that's
translate.
fine. Okay.
You wait, you translate, and then you continue.
Good
Because
idea.
the other way,
Yeah.
well,
Okay. Is that
Okay.
okay?
What I'll do is ask the students if you want simultaneous translation or you want summary, resúmenes. ¿Quieren traducción simultánea o hacer un resumen
No,
cada tanto rato?
I think it's better if I give like a paragraph, you translate that paragraph roughly, and then I carry on after
Okay,
you.
okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Good. Thank you.
I would suggest you to come at the front so you can be less disturbed, sir. Can you come to the front so you can be closer to him
No need.
to be less disturbed?
No
I
need.
can
No need.
hear
No need.
over here.
Okay. Well, can we continue a little bit? Tell us if this is going to be better.
Nos dicen si va a ser más mejor.
Okay. First thing what I do is I list out the names of the photographers and basic details, a biography for the photographer. Then I provide any portraits for the photographer. And then I provide locations for family collections. Wait. And this is very important. The family collections, what I try to do is find the descendants of each of the photographers. If I find the descendants, they may have photographs missing from the history of photography.
Ok, nada, va a ser un poco más difícil. Bueno, he dado unos datos básicos del fotógrafo, un resumen biográfico y algo muy especial es que trate de identificar los herederos o miembros de la familia del fotógrafo para armar la historia del mismo.
Yeah. Okay. I also need to find biographies by large organizations. So there's no point in me writing a biography if the Metropolitan Museum of Art has already written a good biography. So what I do is I get permissions from large organizations to use their biographies on the site.
Las biografías se usa, no necesariamente las escribe, sino que las toma de instituciones como el Museo Metropolitano de Nueva York, toma de ahí las biografías de los fotógrafos.
It is essential also that what we do is we build up the academic material on each photographer. So we need the biographical sources as well, conference speeches, articles, references to books and major literature. So that's all included as well. And these are the front covers of some of the most important publications.
Igualmente lo que hace es rastrear publicaciones del fotógrafo o sobre el autor, y para integrar esta lista de referencias, ahí tiene unas cubiertas de esas publicaciones.
If we think about a simple photograph for a moment, how many of you have ever seen this photograph? How many have seen it?
Si pensamos en una fotografía, veamos esta. ¿Cuántos de ustedes han visto esta fotografía?
No? Okay. It's one of the most important photographs in the history of photography because it's one of the earliest aerial photographs done from a balloon over America. So this was done in the city of Boston, and it was done in 1860 by James Morris Flagg. And it's got a wonderful name. The name is Boston as the eagle and the wild goose see it, which is how a bird would see Boston. But what we have to remember is how early this is as an aerial view of the city. So here, if we think about the information here, there's the name of the person, the title, the date, the type of photograph, that is an albumen print. There's Boston Public Library. It's got the accession number, the infantry number, and then it's got my own number for recording it as well.
Ok, esta fotografía es muy importante porque fue la primera fotografía aérea que se tomó y fue en la ciudad de Boston, y tuvo este nombre singular de una vista de Boston desde el ojo de un águila y un, ¿qué será? Pato. Y estos datos son complementados por parte de él porque pone la fuente donde está esa fotografía, el número de archivo que tiene para recuperarse, y un número propio que él asigna, que es el que está al final.
When you go and buy a book on the history of photography, it's normally broken up by the dates or by the style of photography or by the techniques used for photography. And what I try to do is I try to use all the different ways of accessing the information. So here what we see is for each period I'm covering the photos, the political events of what were actually happening, the cultural events of what was actually happening about that time, and then the photographic events of what was actually happening. So if you think of something like the albumen print, which came in about 1853, 1854, you know, what you actually have here is in this period you'll have a description with it with different timelines.
Ok, por cada fotografía él compila o genera información sobre la fotografía, las cuestiones políticas que estaban en esa época, en ese tiempo, así como los aspectos culturales, ¿sí?, de la fotografía.
What you can also do on the project, which is very important, is think if you go to the internet and you were looking for photographs that were taken in a particular year. You wanted to find all the photographs that were taken in a particular year. So here, I'm looking at photographs that were taken in 1860. Okay? I can go to any year within the history of photography, and I see the photographs that were actually taken during that year. Now, this can be a very long list. It can be many hundreds of photographs, of course. Enormous numbers of photographs. But this is important, because it gives you as a student or a teacher a good understanding of what was happening around the world at a very specific period. And it's the only way you can really understand it. So you look at something like a year like, I don't know, 1915, for example, and you start to see the introduction of abstraction within photography, with people like Paul Strand. You know, so what we have to think about is having tools which provide an educational framework for students.
Ok, una persona buscaría, si busca la fotografía por el año, pone por ejemplo el año que tiene aquí, que es 1800 algo, ustedes van a encontrar todas las fotografías que fueron tomadas ese año y les puede dar una perspectiva muy completa de lo que estaba sucediendo a nivel internacional.
For each of these images, of course, like here's one image, within that image you have a large description on each individual image. So you have the name of the studio, the title, the date, the type of stereographs, and then a description of the photograph.
Por cada fotografía tienen esta ficha donde están los datos de la fotografía, el año donde se tomó, el estudio donde se tomó dicha imagen, así como una descripción sobre el tema que cubre.
Let's think about the techniques that you studied when you do the history of photography.
And here are each of the major techniques. This is a general introduction. There's daguerreotypes, salt prints, cyanotypes, albumin prints, photogravures, ambrotypes, tintypes,
Woodley types are some of the major ones. But there are, as I said, there's 50 or 100 different techniques. Some that were very rarely used, but some of these are the most popular ones that you'll have studied.
Aquí tienen las fotografías por tipo de técnica, son las principales, que se usaron, algunas bastante y otras poco.
For each of the techniques, we need a description, a good
description of it. So here what we're doing is we're looking at techniques, and we're looking at saltpaper prints.
And as you know, when Fox Talbot introduced the calotype process, the calotype was a negative, and the salt print was the positive made from the calotype. Good luck.
Ok, aquí está explicando los diferentes tipos de técnicas. No comprendí mucho la parte esta de la parte positiva y negativa de la fotografía.
Yeah.
Es calotipo y papel salado. Está hablando de
¿El
los dos
negativo?
calotipo.
Calotype.
Calotipo.
Yeah, calotype.
Y papel salado.
Y papel
el
salado.
negativo es el negativo y el papel
Yeah.
salado es el positivo.
Ok,
Yeah.
gracias.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we have a brief description of it, and then over this side, we look at some of the major examples.
And these examples all come from the book, The Pencil of Nature by Fox Talbot. Have any of you looked at this book?
¿Algunos de ustedes han mirado este libro? Aquí hay algunos ejemplos de las fotografías usando esta técnica.
Have any of you looked at it? It is unbelievably important, this book. Right? Because it's not the first book done by a photographer. The first one was done by Anna Atkins, which was cyanotypes. But The Pencil of Nature is incredibly important because Fox Talbot experimented with all the major forms of genres that you could take. So he experimented with taking copies of woodcuts, he experimented with scientific photography, he experimented with botany, he experimented with landscapes, he experimented with architecture. You know, so what you see in Fox Talbot, if it's in your library, go and have a look. It's all online, you can see the entire book online. And it may have 40 illustrations in it, not a lot. But what you'll realise is that with Fox Talbot you have a pure genius. He could demonstrate from the earliest days of photography how photography would be used in the future. And this is important because if you think about daguerre and daguerreotypes, there's only about 40 daguerreotypes known. There's a very small number of daguerreotypes actually made by daguerre. With Fox Talbot, there's over 25,000 prints. Right, okay, an incredible collection of prints that he did over quite a short period. So, although we think that of daguerre as one of the founders of photography, he was incredibly important. But Fox Talbot had the foresight and the genius to look to the future of photography.
Ok, está escribiendo un libro de un autor que dice que es indispensable para quienes estudian la fotografía, se llama Fox Talbot, que tiene un libro que no fue el primero, sin embargo su aportación es que tiene muy buenos ejemplos, creo que dijo que 40, ¿sí? La primera fue una dama de apellido Atkins, que fue la primera, pero sin embargo es considerada que el libro de Fox Talbot es muy importante, que si lo tienen, si está aquí en la biblioteca, vayan y le den una revisada, también está en línea, lo pueden consultar.
Here you have a page from my website on Luminous Names which shows you the illustrations within the book.
So if you look at the book, there's the book cover, the title page, various adverts for it. But when you look at
These examples,
look what you're seeing. Architecture, still lifes, statues, outside shots, botany, lines of books, the Bridge at Orléans in France, a part of, I think it's Cambridge University, that, and then there's still life with fruit, and then a bit of lace. So what you see here is an incredible variety of different types of photography. So it wasn't that he was specializing in one form. What he had was the genius to realize all the possibilities of photography.
Ok, aquí tiene una página del sitio web de Alan, que es unos links de fotografías de Talbot. Ustedes pueden ver la variedad de temas a lo mejor, botánica, esculturas, fotografía urbana, arquitectura, etc.
And the important thing as well in the book, he describes extremely well the reasons why he took these photographs. And it's unusual because Fox Talbot was what we say in English a polymath. This is he was a person who translated Assyrian texts. He was a brilliant mathematician, a brilliant astronomer, a very good botanist. So he tried all different forms of sciences as well. But when he's actually describing this one photograph, you see, these are different versions. It's not that he took one single photograph of the statue. He took the same photograph lots of different ways to understand how light works. And remember, this is 1844. So this is about, this is within 5 years of the discovery or announcement of photography. Because photography was officially announced in January of 1839. But nobody understood the process until August.
Ok, este fotógrafo era un hombre, yo diría, muy sabio, se conocía de astronomía, botánica, etc. Por eso es que de alguna manera sus fotografías tenían esa profundidad, porque conocía el tema, traducía igualmente de otros idiomas, mencionaba el sirio, etc. Lo cual hacía que él tuviera mucho conocimiento al respecto. Y no tomaba una sola fotografía, sino que tomaba muchas para ver el efecto de la luz.
Another thing, if you look at this text was actually written by Fox Talbot. And it's saying it's about the nature of light and about the nature of how we photograph the subject. So he appreciates immediately that you can take multiple photographs at different times of day of the same object to get very different results. And the reason why that's important is to get a different impression of the subject. A very different impression. Because although these photographs are of the same stature, but they have a very different visual impact upon the viewer.
Ok, Fox Talbot tomaba fotos en diferentes tiempos del día para ver el efecto de la luz y poder entender mejor el objeto que estaba fotografiando.
Within Luminous Lint, what I do is I create lots of what I call visual indexes. And a visual index is any connection between photographs. Okay? And they may be from different collections in the world, they may include different technologies, they may be taken at different periods, but there's some sort of connection between them. The connection might be the technique used to take the photograph. It might be the place. For example, Veracruz would be a visual index of just the photograph taken in this city. And these are some of the visual indexes for Fox Talbot. Because he did work on botany, he did wax paper negatives, he did still lines, dandelion seeds. I mean, that's the thing that's so important about Fox Talbot, if you look at it. The idea of taking an image of the seeds of a dandelion plant with lots of detail that early on, that's visionary. That is really far-sighted. Over to you.
Ok, lo que hacía esta persona es que, sorry, I got lost a little bit. Well, el sitio web de Alan, uno de los atributos que tiene es crear índices visuales, donde busca las conexiones que hay de la fotografía, no solamente en cuanto a la imagen, sino la técnica, el lugar, etc. Lo cual hace que sea muy útil cuando se anda buscando algún tema o en general, porque hay conexión entre uno y otro.
If we think about themes in photography, when you studied it, you may have had a lecture on portraiture, or a lecture on landscape photography, the history of landscape photography. But how many themes are there in photography? There's maybe 20 major themes, really major themes. With each of those can be broken down. And on my website, I'm dealing with 980 different themes. So within something like portraiture, for example, there's portraits that are just straight on headshots, but then there's portraits of the foot, portraits of the ear, portraits of the nose, portraits of the mouth, portraiture of celebrities, and portraits of artists. So there are many different ways of studying portraiture.
Cuando hablamos de temas, pudieran ser 40, pero ahora habla de 900, si no me equivoco, donde cada tema se desglosa. Por ejemplo, está poniendo el ejemplo de los portarretratos, o puede ser vistas panorámicas, pero el caso de portarretratos puede ser de la nariz, de una parte de la cara, etc.
One thing that's interesting is when you look through the history of photography, you realize that there are entire subjects missing. Like you'll find portraits of the eye, you'll find portraits of the nose, portraits of the mouth, but there are incredibly few portraits of the ear. Well, that's a bit strange. Why are there so few portraits of the ear? And who would take portraits of the ear and why?
Cuando habla de portarretratos, hay temas que están completamente desiertos, que no hay fotografía. Por ejemplo, que en la nariz hay portarretratos, de la boca, etc. Pero curiosamente, por ejemplo, del oído no lo hay. ¿Por qué no hay este tipo de fotografía?
The people who would take photographs of the ear are people who do genetic studies or criminology. Because there was a lot of work done on criminology where they thought that by the shape of the ear they could tell if you were a criminal or not. It was stupid, but it was done a lot in the 19th century and early 20th century. Right? So if any of you want to ever have an exhibition of your photographs, take ears.
Dice que ¿quién tomaría fotos de la oreja o del oído? De la oreja, sería gente del área genética y de criminología, ¿sí? Y que si ustedes quieren hacer una exposición buena, pueden hacerla sobre la oreja o el oído.
There were so few
Porque hay muy pocas fotografías. ¿Sí?
One of the things, if you're artists, is always to be aware of the gaps in photo history, right? Because the difficulty as a photographer is you always think that you're doing something original. And that's a real danger. Right, okay? What you have to be aware of is the history of photography in immense detail. And because you're aware of it, then you'll start to see patterns and trends, and you'll start to see where the gaps are. And these gaps are so important because they encourage your professional career.
Dice que si ustedes están trabajando la fotografía, piensen en los vacíos, cosas que no se han fotografiado, para tratar de trabajar esas. Que hay un peligro del fotógrafo cuando piensa que lo que está haciendo pues, es original. Pero conforme ustedes avanzan en esta disciplina, van descubriendo tendencias y es cuando ustedes pueden descubrir esas oportunidades de campos que no se han sido cubiertos.
So I mentioned there were lots of themes on Luminescent. Now all of these, if you went out to a really good photography bookstore, you would find books on these, like the history of abstract photography, history of... This is an important thing. The way that curators have studied photography, and gallerists, people who work in galleries have studied photography, has changed enormously over the last 30 and 40 years. Okay? So if you think about it, some of these subjects weren't collected by galleries and they weren't shown into museums until relatively recently. A classic example of this is advertising. Advertising was really overlooked in the history of photography. Because it wasn't regarded as art. Like commercial photography wasn't regarded as art. And vernacular photography wasn't regarded as art. Right? And so snapshots weren't regarded as art. Now this is all changing, so all these subjects are now included within the history of photography. It's far more complex, but far more inclusive of all forms of photography.
Okay, en la historia de la fotografía, años atrás, no se cubrían todos los temas. Por el ejemplo de la mercadotecnia, que no estaba incluida porque no se consideraba arte. Sin embargo, en los últimos años es más inclusiva, donde incluye la fotografía vernácula, o sea, local, me imagino, las fotografías instantáneas, la mercadotecnia, etc.
You have to understand also of why these issues change. Why suddenly advertising, commercial photography, snapshot photography, the photography of photo booths is now all regarded as art. It's because of cost. It's because of financial costs. The big organizations and the large museums can't afford now to buy a lot of the really expensive photographs. Because now some photographs are $3 million a photograph, or $12 million for a single photograph now.
Dice que un reto, creo que no toma la primera parte, pero uno de los retos es la parte financiera de los museos o coleccionistas, que hay fotografías muy caras y que no pueden cubrir todos los temas. Espero haber entendido.
Yeah, and that means a lot of the museums now have to buy the cheaper ranges of photography. And so as some of these subjects, like advertising and commercial photography, wasn't collected, they were a lot cheaper. You know, if you go out today and you wanted to buy a photograph by a member of the Bauhaus, for example, it's going to be very expensive. But if you want to go out and buy an advertising photograph, it's still going to be pretty cheap.
Un factor que permitió a los museos coleccionar fotografía que no era la clásica fue el costo. Por ejemplo, la fotografía de mercadotecnia costaba menos y permitía a los museos adquirirla para sus colecciones.
Yeah. Okay. So if we think of a subject like landscape photography, on the website, each of these is a separate genre. Like the photographs of deserts, photographs of cliffs, a history of the photographs of mountains, the history of photographs of streams. Now, the thing is, and I think this is very important as students, what you do, is you go onto the internet and you just get a very specific title. Like you say, I want cyanotypes of architecture, or I want daguerreotypes of people. And you look a lot and in detail at those photographs. So you actually understand the range of photographs within a particular genre. So look in books, but you can do fantastic research on the internet in this. And the other thing that becomes very important now is using artificial intelligence to find out the gaps. And so what I find is that my website is hundreds of millions of links internally, hundreds of millions. So what I do now is I ask artificial intelligence systems to go through my website to find out the gaps.
Ok, aquí pueden ver el ejemplo que él tiene de fotografía panorámica y de cómo la divide en tanto detalle, fantasía, bosques, arroyos, etc. Y dice que si uno busca en internet que era algo muy específico, por ejemplo, de una técnica de daguerrotipo, de un tema en especial, se puede usar la inteligencia artificial. Dice que la usa para identificar vacíos que hay dentro del campo de la fotografía.
Yeah, the importance here is you can create beautiful images using artificial intelligence. You can use artificial intelligence to analyze the images that you've created. But what you can also do is use artificial intelligence to examine the whole history of photography in enormous detail. So effectively you can ask for very specific gaps, or you can ask questions like, what is missing from the history of photography? Now that's an interesting question, because if you know the answer to that question, then you can start to predict what may become important in the history of photography in the future. You can start to plot the gaps and the changes within the subject.
Ok, con inteligencia artificial no solamente podemos crear estas fotografías bellas, sino que también las podemos analizar y también las podemos usar para identificar la historia de la fotografía e identificar qué oportunidades hay. Le voy a hacer la pregunta y esta información les puede servir a ustedes para predecir qué se va a volver importante en los próximos años.
Okay, I'll skip through a couple of these.
Me voy a brincar un par.
Think about this. I'm going to take a photograph of you. Right? Okay. Full smile. Right. Thank you. Now, think about that photograph. Okay? What information do I have in that photograph? I have who was the photographer, the type of phone, the date it was taken, the time it was taken, the format of the photograph, the lens that was used, the exact geographical location of this building. It has facial recognition for each of you. Right, okay? So it could do analysis of every one of your faces. Right, okay? Now, I was out yesterday in the cathedral, and in the cathedral downtown, there was the ordination of the priests. Right, okay? And probably thousands of photographs were taken. Right, okay? Thousands of photographs would have been taken at that one ceremony. But you think of the ordination of the priests in 1860 in Veracruz. How many photographs were ever taken? 2? 3? None? Maybe none. Quite likely it was none. So what we appreciate now is to understand the trends within photography is a question of the numbers of photographs. So we take for granted enormous numbers of images, but we realize that in the 19th century there really weren't that many photographs taken. No, there really weren't. I mean, it's almost certain that the world now is taking more photographs every second than we're ever taking the whole of the 19th century. So when I look at my website with 130,000 photographs on it, right, those are carefully selected from thousands of different collections. So what we do is we get an overall pattern, a shape of connections through the history of photography. But what we have to realize is there are immense gaps within the subject.
El día de ayer estuvo en la catedral y estuvo en la ordenación de sacerdotes que hizo el seminario aquí local, y él estima que tomaron miles de fotos por los familiares de los sacerdotes, y en cada fotografía, con la tecnología que tenemos actualmente, con el teléfono nos dice el lugar, la hora, el edificio donde estamos, las caras, podemos hacer reconocimiento facial de quienes estaban en ese lugar, etc. Así toda la información que nos da la técnica, el lente, etc. Pero esto es ahorita actualmente. Pero si pensamos en el siglo XIX, en 1860, por ejemplo, ¿cuántas fotografías se habían tomado en esa ceremonia? 2, 3, ninguna. ¿Sí? Y dice, bueno, según entiendo, el valor del sitio web que tiene 131 fotografías, es que genera este tipo de conexiones que ahora la tecnología las hace tan fáciles.
What I want to do is think about a particular problem that affects all collections of photography around the world. So I'm going to go through the problem. Here's a particular photograph. Okay? This is the Temple of the Sun at Baalbek in Lebanon. And what I'm going to do is think about small to large problems, the risks of regional thinking, the benefits of sharing, and then a vision of thinking about this photograph. So let's think what the major questions are with this photograph. Some of them are obvious, and some of them aren't obvious. Who took the photograph? Who was the photographer? What is the title or titles? Remember that a photograph from the 19th century may have 5 or 10 different titles in different collections. So they're not uniform titles. There often was never an original title set by the photographer, unless the photographer produced a catalogue. So often, even the title has been made up by a curator. They're not certain. When was it taken? Well, that's often within 5 years, 10 years, depending on the technique. Sometimes if there's a diary, we know the exact day and time it was taken. What technique or process was used? Where is the image now? That's easy. And what was the context? So if you look at a museum collection, right, okay, and you find a photograph, most of these questions are answered within the record. Right, okay? So here we've got all the information about the title, and the photographer, the date, the type and the size of it, which museum it's in, the inventory number, which book it was published in. But what was the context that a photograph was taken? This is perhaps the most important question, and it's the most difficult one for any museum curator to handle. Because what it means is, for a curator, you have to be able to recognize not only the photographs in your own collection and the archives of your institution, you have to understand all the similar photographs within all the other museums in the world. Museums do not collect that information. They haven't got the time. They just don't have the time to do it. Okay? So information is often missing, the context is often missing. Good luck.
Thank you. Bueno, como ustedes sabrán, solamente puedo hacer un resumen. Bien, mencionó que este tema que está ahorita abordando en esta sección de la charla son los problemas que él identifica. Y mencionó como 5 problemas desde la visión, pensar desde lo local, etc. Y está poniendo el ejemplo de esta fotografía que está en Líbano. ¿Cuál es esta fotografía? Sí. Entonces puso esta fotografía de Líbano, donde menciona qué datos queremos de una fotografía. Y mencionó quién la tomó, dónde se tomó, por qué se tomó, cuál es el ambiente que había en esa época, la técnica, etc. Y la mayoría de estas preguntas trata de responderlas en su página web por cada fotografía. Y aquí menciona cómo él detalla los datos técnicos de la fotografía, pero queda una pregunta suelta. ¿Cuál fue el contexto en que se tomó esta fotografía? El contexto de la fotografía lo ubica revisando colecciones de los museos, pero los museos no tienen tiempo ni dinero para generar esta información.
Yeah. Okay. Here we have 4 photographs taken by 4 different photographers of exactly the same monument. Okay? And these photographs were all taken within about 15 years of each other. So they're taken by different photographers, Axel Dupont, Hammerschmidt, Bonfils, Capadura, and they're all taken in almost exactly the same location. Like, I don't know if you ever remember, but there used to be places where you'd stand and there was a Kodak point. Like, so you stood on a particular mark on the ground, and this was where you were meant to take your photograph, because you'd get the best photograph. This is very similar to that. People looked at these particular locations throughout the world, and they often took almost identical photographs.
Esta es una fotografía con las mismas columnas de 4 diferentes fotógrafos en un periodo como de 50 años. Ahí tienen los nombres de los autores. La característica es que en general están tomadas desde el mismo ángulo, así como hay lugares donde ya le dicen a uno dónde pararse para tomar la mejor toma de ese lugar.
Okay. Now we have to think about where these photographs, the physical photographs, exist in the world. For example, the first photograph is in George Eastman House in the United States. The second photograph is in the United Kingdom in the National Media Museum. This photograph was sold by a bookshop in the UK, and this one was sold by an auction house in France. Okay? So the only way a curator could ever find out about the related photographs was to keep track of all the auctions and what was being sold in bookshops. Very good, but it's the only way to actually understand the overall framework of the history of photography.
Ok, aquí tenemos estas fotografías donde se hace la pregunta dónde fueron tomadas, dónde se encuentran estas fotografías. La primera que está en Estados Unidos, la segunda en el Reino Unido, la tercera que fue, creo que estuvo en una librería en Inglaterra, la otra fue en una venta de libros. Y esto es lo que tienen que, cuando alguien quiere hacer la historia de la fotografía, tiene que estar al pendiente de las ventas o baratas que hay de este tipo de materiales, en este caso libros.
If we think about these collections, like A, B, C, and D, each of them has one of the photographs. But why would a curator or a writer or a photo historian ever learn about the other photographs? They would only learn about them if they were doing some serious research on the types of this.
What's happened?
The Zoom. Oh, wait.
Oh, yeah.
It was recorded by Zoom.
Thank you.
So if we actually look at these photographs here, they're in 4 different collections, and the only way they'd be connected are these reasons. Like, for example, if it was a multi-collection exhibition of photography, so if there was one institution, like, you know, the George Eastman Museum or the Museum of Natural History, they'd get the photographs together from different collections to exhibit them. And in the exhibition published catalogue, these 4 might be linked together. In monographs, articles, and in catalogue records. These, for scholars, these publications provide the key, the connection between the works. But what I have to think about is how we can provide long-term the connections between all this material. This is where Luminously, my website, comes in. Because what it does is it provides all the connections between the photographs. Right, so you can see, for the large numbers of photographs, it provides the connections between them, provides the full checklists, retains the institutional information. Like for every photograph I have, I need to know which institution it was in, and also the institution numbers, the cataloguing details and everything. And from that information, I can build up a visual index, which is a way of seeing these images together.
Ok, en la diapositiva anterior mostraba las fuentes que un curador de una colección o un historiador de la fotografía tiene que consultar, que son muchas fuentes que están dispersas. Y esto solamente lo puede hacer un investigador serio, que esté realmente enfocado y que tenga el tiempo para hacerlo. La solución que él provee es que les ahorra este tiempo proveyendo en su sitio web este tipo de información, donde tiene más de 100.000 fotografías muy bien seleccionadas, donde prepara esa relación entre unas y otras, ¿sí? Y provee conectividad, o sea, una relación con las colecciones privadas y públicas, que son más de 3.600, ¿sí? Y conserva la información institucional, listas de cotejo y, lo más importante, que tiene un índice visual a estas colecciones.
Thank you. So let's think about it. If we now know about those 4 specific images, what we can do is we can build up what I call a visual index of those images. And then what I do is put them into what I term a fragment, which is like a bucket of information. And a bucket of information consists of images, video, audio, and text. So it's multimodal. It's got all the information about that group of images, which I can then use at any location within the website.
Ok, lo que hace es, para construir estos índices visuales, él relaciona fuentes visuales, auditivas, texto, etc. Imagínense que es un recipiente donde él hace estas conexiones para dar la información de la fotografía que ustedes anden buscando.
Okay. So what this means is that for certain areas of the world, you end up with very complex visual indexes. For example, here are all shots of the Roman Forum, taken by different photographers at roughly the same time. But these photographs provide chronological sequences. And the way they provide chronological sequences is by the growth of trees. Like if you look here, on the Via Sacra, sometimes you see lines of trees. And we know when those trees were planted, and we know when those trees were pulled out of the ground. So because of that, we can actually create chronological sequences for each part of the world.
Aquí está poniendo un ejemplo de cómo identifica la información cronológica, o sea, del tiempo, donde tiene este foro romano, donde dice que toman como indicador los árboles cuando están pequeños y cómo van creciendo, y con eso va formando la cronología de la evolución de esa foto o de cuándo el árbol fue arrancado.
And we see exactly the same. There are visual similarities between photographs. Like you see, if you look at these photographs, all my different photographers, they are all about trees, again with water in the foreground. But they each have different meaning. Some of these photographs were produced as artistic experiments of different forms of photography, and others were historical records of, well, tragedies during the Second World War. So it's a very similar photograph. The structure of the photograph is very similar, but they have totally different contextual understanding.
Aquí tiene este ejemplo de fotografía donde dice que cada una tiene un contexto diferente. Quizá el tema es el mismo, quizá el enfoque, pero el contexto es diferente. Algunos fueron tomados durante la Segunda Guerra Mundial.
Okay. I'll switch through some of these, okay, because it takes too long. Let's think about some of the challenges for how we index and deal with the history of photography. The first thing we need to understand is the individual vision of the photographer. And remember that very few photographers have ever left diaries, right? Detailed diaries. You know, for people like Edward Weston, you have enormous diaries, complex diaries explaining why he took individual photographs. That is incredibly rare. So what we have to do is we try and work out from any related literature, newspaper reports, lists of exhibitions, what their motivations were.
Buscar uno de los desafíos, está hablando de desafíos, es entender la visión personal del fotógrafo. Dice que para lograr esto tiene que consultar periódicos, diferentes notas que pueden ser fuentes, porque pocos fotógrafos tienen un diario donde anotan por qué tomaron una fotografía. Y menciona un autor que se llama Weston, que dejó unos diarios increíbles con los detalles de por qué había tomado esa fotografía. Pero esto no es normal. Normalmente el fotógrafo no tiene esta virtud. Por lo tanto, hacer esta investigación pues es complejo.
Yeah. So when we look at this particular photograph by Fox Talbot once again, it says, you know, a painter's eye can often be arrested where ordinary people see nothing remarkable. That's the thing. It's the way of looking at an image. When you're a photographer, you're effectively an artist, and you have a unique vision. But what you've got to do is think throughout the history of photography. If you just picked up a book and looked at photographs, how many photographers would you recognize just by the photograph? How many photographers have a unique style? A unique style is really rare. Really, really rare. You know, so what you have to do is to work out how you recognize that style and what is the style of your own photographs. What makes you unique as an artist? You know, and you have to analyze it very clearly.
Okay, algo complejo es identificar el estilo de un fotógrafo. Aquí tiene una definición de Fox Talbot, que ha mencionado bastante. Dice que un fotógrafo pues realmente tiene esa percepción única, ¿no?, de ver la importancia de una sombra, de una piedra desgastada, etc. Pero dice que es muy raro, bastante raro, que un fotógrafo conserve un mismo estilo. Entonces, el reto para ustedes es tratar de identificar las características que hagan único al fotógrafo.
If you look at this photograph was taken in 1845. Think about that. This photograph was taken 6 years after photography was invented. Right? That is astounding. That is absolute genius. It is stylistically remarkable in its layout. It's exactly like a painting in many ways. The positioning of the trees, the use of reflection. So it looks exactly like a painting. But think of how astounding it is to have done that on a daguerreotype 6 years after photography was invented. If any of you took a photograph like that, you should be really, really proud.
Aquí tiene una fotografía que fue tomada 5 años después de que se había inventado la fotografía. Vean la composición, que casi parece una pintura. Es increíblemente bien hecha, ¿sí?, para lo temprano del desarrollo de la fotografía.
This one. This is a classic because it's a commercial photograph used for advertising. But look when it was created. It was created in 1897. Why is that important? It was in 1896 that X-rays were first discovered. Right? So this is an advert based on an X-ray used for a tyre company. So here what you've got is it's a visionary use of one form of scientific photography for a commercial purpose. It is absolutely visionary.
Aquí tenemos una fotografía de 1897 de tipo comercial. Lo interesante es que esta fotografía es una fotografía de tipo científico que un año antes se había descubierto los rayos X.
Well, one thing that's interesting is to try and go back. Like, when I go to an exhibition of photographs, even if it's contemporary photographs, what I try to do is work out where I've seen that style of photography before. And normally, if you go to a major exhibition of photographs, I normally can recognize, if I look at a photograph of a landscape, I can say, I know of a similar photograph to that taken in 1870, right? But one area that is very different is abstraction in photography. Because abstraction in painting only started in 1905. In 1915 it started in photography. You don't get abstract paintings, you don't get abstract art in the 19th century. So what you have to do is when you look at photographs, is try to work out when that style of photography actually began, and then see the continuing pattern of it.
Algo que él hace cuando va a una exposición de fotografía, etc., es que manda la mira y generalmente él recuerda dónde ha visto esta composición, ese tipo de fotografía. Y un reto en este caso de este enfoque que hace es la fotografía abstracta, que comenzó en 1905 el movimiento. 1950. Entonces,
no, es 1915.
1915, ¿sí? Y eso les permite ya, si esta técnica o este estilo nació en 1915, ustedes ya pueden empezar a procesar el tiempo en que fue tomado.
You could have a little thing about the idea of truth in a photograph. And what we tend to think is that in the 19th century, or before digital art, most photographs had a truth. There's never been truth in photography. Never ever been truth in photography. People have always experimented. So if you look at this picture, what are we seeing? This is by a Welsh photographer. It was done in about 1855. And the photographer is little known. It's John Dilwyn Llewellyn. Okay? But what this is the representation of a Canadian fishing scene. But it was done in somebody's back garden in Wales. Okay? So it has no truth. But it's a fabrication. So when you look at fabrications in photography, there's always been fabrication in photography.
Porque cuando hablamos de la verdad, la fotografía nunca ha tenido la verdad. O sea, la fotografía es algo que pone aquí como ejemplo esta fotografía que ha sido compuesta por un fotógrafo que no es muy conocido, ¿sí?, donde representa un lugar de pesca en Canadá, pero la fotografía no se tomó en Canadá, sino se tomó en Gales, en el Reino Unido, ¿sí?, en otro lugar muy distinto.
We also need to think about colour in photography as to when that came in. The first popular colour process that became available to all the public was the autochrome process, which was leaked in 1907. The autochrome process from 1907 was created by the Lumiere brothers, who also created cinema. They were two of the major inventors in cinema. But prior to the commercial colour processes, lots of people were painting on photographs very early on. And so it's a form of truth, because it's closer to the truth, hopefully, than the black and white or a monochrome picture. But it's still a fabrication, the colour. And what can be interesting is when you see two photographs, the same photograph, that's been hand-painted, where the woman's dress is in different colours. What does that tell you? Was those photographs originally painted as a guide for a costume maker or a fashion person? So it's very interesting to find these oddities within the history of photography.
Ok, la fotografía a color, no recuerdo el año, what was the year for color printing?
1907 was the first commercial colour process.
En 1905 comienzan los primeros procesos de color. Y la parte temprana era cuando la fotografía monocromática, blanco y negro, se pintaba y podían ver como una fotografía, de repente, el vestido de una dama tenía un color y en otro estaba otro. Y aquí la pregunta que se hace es, ¿cuál es el objetivo de la fotografía? ¿Era para cuestiones de moda o por qué variaba?
Yeah, we see this one. This is an early daguerreotype. It's a daguerreotype where he's got a painting box like this one, and he's actually painting a daguerreotype. Okay, so it's a fascinating because it actually shows you the process by which it was done, how they added colour to photographs very early on. And of this one, which is once again, it's a salt print. And if you think about salt prints, they were done on writing paper, normal writing paper, or watercolour paper. And because of that paper, you could actually paint directly on it, and the paper would absorb the colours. And here, what you see is a wonderful example. It's beautifully painted, and they give us clues as to the past, these photographs. Like, the clue here is, what colour were the chairs used in photographic studios? Okay? Now, this may not seem important, but it is important. The colours of green, red, and far less blue were commonly used on the chairs in photographic studios. And this all helps us to date photographs and to come up with different styles.
Ok, aquí tenemos una foto que está muy bellamente pintada, ¿sí? Y aquí él puso una fotografía de donde alguien tiene las pinturas, ¿sí? Y aquí está mostrando la foto que fue muy bien hecha y donde el pintor trata de asemejar con la realidad. En este caso pone el asiento, dice que los colores que predominaban en los estudios era verde y rojo por cuestiones técnicas. Entonces el que colorea realmente está tomando en cuenta lo que sucede en la vida real.
Okay, I may have to go a bit quicker, otherwise you'll all go to sleep.
Dice que va a ser un poco más rápido antes de que se duerman.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll just float on. I'll float through a few areas here. Okay. Within the history of photography, we will find a lot of areas that are under-researched currently. There are enormous gaps still in the history of photography. And so what we see are early examples like this. This is a woman called a banner lady. And in America, there were civic parades, like in villages and towns, where women wore clothing that was related to the various trades that they were trying to advertise. So this woman was trying to advertise a photographic studio. So she has a camera on her head. She has a camera beside her. She has like an artist's palette. Then all the different photographs are pinned to her dress. And we find photographs like this of all the different trades within America. And the people I pity were the women who were trying to advertise blacksmiths. Right, blacksmiths. And the reason that was difficult is because they had great big lumps of metal on their dresses. They had horseshoes and nails. You could read some metal on their dresses. You'd be playing that.
Okay, my turn.
Yeah.
Ok. Aquí está, dice que, bueno, uno de los temas que ya mencionó, que no ha sido tan investigado, es el de la mercadotecnia. Dice que en Estados Unidos estuvo como una estrategia que las damas, que eran las modelos para generar la fotografía de mercadotecnia, vestían algo relacionado con el tema. Aquí está una señorita con un vestido con fotografías pegadas a su ropa, y así lo hacían en otros tipos de negocios. Uno muy difícil era el de los herreros. ¿Qué le ponían al vestido? Entonces le ponían clavos, no sé si martillos, muy pesados, pero era más difícil que la persona tuviera un vestido alusivo a lo que estaba promoviendo.
I'm going to go quite quickly. Let's try to do some of this.
Dice que se ve muy rápido.
Right. What we'll have to do now is think about the various opportunities that if we have large data sets and large ways of dealing with information on photo history, we can provide different graphical interfaces into the knowledge that we have.
Ok, está hablando de oportunidades. Dice que una de las áreas que permiten estas oportunidades son los conjuntos de datos que hay al respecto que permiten hacer estas relaciones.
Okay. On Facebook, almost every day, I put in a query, a request for about 700 collectors who deal with the history of photography. And each day I put in a very specific request asking for examples of photographs. And so these are some of the examples. So I may be looking for photographs of telescopes, or photographs about the history of cheese. No, or the photographs of barbers. And the collectors I know will provide me with examples. They just always provide me with examples. And for this, what I'm trying to do is find out the gaps within the history of photography.
Algo que hace es que a través de Facebook hace una pregunta, una petición, como 700 historiadores, coleccionistas o historiadores del arte sobre temas específicos. Aquí tiene ejemplos de la historia del queso, telescopios, de los barberos o peluqueros, ¿sí? Y para que le proporcionen ejemplos sobre el tema.
There are
Eso
different
permite
gaps.
ver los vacíos que hay.
The other thing that you have to think about is how a photographer, the work of a photographer, has been represented in print media. So here we have the same photograph, we've got the albumen print, but it's now on a postcard as a collotype. So what I'm interested in is how different photographs have spread into popular media, how they've appeared in magazines, how they've been founded in books, any form that, or how a photograph has been converted into a painting. You know, so I'm always looking for how a particular photograph has crossed over different media types.
Una de las tareas que él realiza es ver cómo el uso de la fotografía se da en diferentes aplicaciones, ¿sí? Que alguna fotografía inclusive llega a ser una pintura, como se usó en mercadotecnia, y aquí tiene un ejemplo como una fotografía misma está usada con diferentes objetivos.
Yeah. So if we think about what's actually happening on Luminous Lens, as I've described it, we have, for the first 10 years of this project, I've been working on the images, the visual indexes, and online exhibitions. And each of these lead through to this area up here I call a fragment. And a fragment, as I described, is like a bucket of information. It's a bucket of knowledge. So it may contain photographs, it may contain text, it may contain video. And each of these then is fed into the different themes. These about almost 980 different themes to create histories. And as we go forward, we need to think about the future of how we can use this information. And here, some of you who have studied computing, graphical interfaces, you studied artificial intelligence, you studied information landscapes, all these areas. That's the next phase for what I'm doing on Luminous Lens.
Aquí describe lo que hace a través de su sitio web sobre la historia de la fotografía. Por ejemplo, la primera fase de 1 a 10 años ha sido trabajada desde el punto de vista de las imágenes, eran buenas imágenes, coleccionándolas, los índices visuales, exhibiciones en línea, etc. Y cada fragmento, como él le llama, es un tema que es preparado con diferentes piezas.
This is my final lecture. My final lecture. Maybe. This is the final slide I'll show you. But this is really important. And I want you to understand and look at this slide very carefully because it's important. This photograph was taken by an Italian photographer, Mario Giacomelli, one of the great Italian photographers. And it shows a landscape, just a landscape, with wheat fields going away. But imagine, use your imagination for this. Say the bottom of the photograph was 1839. And say the skyline, where the sky is, was the current date, 2025. Okay? Now imagine that every photographer who has ever lived is one of the stalks of wheat within this field. And every grain on every stalk is every photograph ever taken by that photographer. Okay? That means that this photograph, this single photograph, can reflect every major image ever taken. Because remember that on your computer screen you have well over 1 million pixels with incredible amounts of information in an individual pixel. So here you can represent 1 million photographs. But it's not only the photographs you can represent on this, is it? It's every book, because every book on the history of photography has a trace through these fields. Every article on photography is somewhere on that field. Now if imagine, in a virtual world, in a virtual reality, if you walked through that field and you ran your hand across the wheat, okay, across the grain, then what you'd see is all the photographs taken by that photographer or taken about that period, with all the related information, all the articles, books, scientific publications that relate to everything on that field. So this image could act as an interface to the entire history of photography. Okay? Okay. Now it's up to you.
Ha puesto el ejemplo abstracto de lo que es la historia de la fotografía y en cierta forma un paralelo de lo que hace su página web con este campo cubierto de trigo, donde cada espiga y cada grano que tiene la espiga es un componente de la historia de la fotografía. ¿Sí? Entonces hay un trabajo arduo para armar esta historia de la imagen, que yo diría en estos momentos la imagen se ha vuelto el medio más importante de comunicación en la humanidad.
Yeah, finally, I think there are so many new tools that are going to be available to us within the next couple of years because of artificial intelligence. We'll have totally different ways of understanding the history of photography. Revolutionary ways of thinking about it. And this is going to be important for each of you because those tools will allow you to refine your careers very precisely.
Bueno, él estima que en 2 años la inteligencia artificial va a cambiar completamente la historia, la forma de armar la historia de la fotografía y que ustedes tienen una oportunidad para elegir o identificar esos campos donde se pueden especializar. ¿Preguntas? ¿Estudiantes? A ver. Sí. Les voy a pedir que sean breves, ¿sí? Si puedo dar su nombre y de qué parte vienen. ¿Sí?
Soy Saturnino Gastiazoro Domínguez, maestro de la Facultad de Comunicación. Quería hacerle 2 preguntitas muy rápidas. Y yo he tenido varios cursos de fotografía, me interesaron la fotografía. De hecho, yo he sido director de cine independiente en la Ciudad de México en los años 70. Fui de un grupo que se llamaba Taller Independiente de Cine Luis Buñuel. Y me interesa mucho la fotografía. Entonces, me gusta ver de pronto documentales.
¿Por qué no lo hace en inglés?
¿Eh?
¿Por qué no lo hace en inglés?
En inglés, pues es para que todos bueno.
Después,
My name is Saturnino Garcesoro Dominguez. I am a teacher of the Faculty of Communications of this university. I was in Mexico City. I lived the major part of my career. I was director of independent cinema in Mexico during the 70s. I was an editor of comics, of the industry of comic books. And I'm very interested in photography. And a few days ago, I saw a documentary in the internet in which a photographer explained us that in the 19th century, I think, 19th century, they discovered, they had a process that was named wet photography.
Yeah, wet plate. Yeah.
Wet photography. And this wet photography process has a definition and a quality better than the digital photography that we have.
Right.
So I compare this from the long plays we had in music years ago with these CDs.
Yeah.
And the long plays, the plastic long plays, are coming back again.
Yeah.
So I think that maybe it's interesting to go back to the wet photography and do something to make it actual. That's the first question. And the second question is that I saw a very nice film produced by Kate Winslet that was named Miller. The photographer is Lee Miller. And I wanted to ask you what you think of Lee Miller.
Okay, firstly, with wet plate photography, you'll have to do a bit of because you'll have to do a bit of Spanish. I'll step first. Wet plate photography is truly fascinating. It came in about 1850s, and the quality of it all depended upon the size of the glass plate. And for certain photographers, like Carlton Watkins, used what were mammoth plates. These were enormous negatives, very large negatives. So the definition of those is incredibly high, incredibly high. On the daguerreotype is incredibly high. The resolution on a daguerreotype is very, very high. But if you think of the quality of the sensors now in the best digital cameras, they're just about as good. They really are. And you can certainly get sensors that are better than wet plate. You can certainly now get sensors. Having said that, there are a lot of people I know who are now working with wet plate, daguerreotype, cyanotype, every process. And it's called the Alternative Processes Movement. And it's a big movement. It's worldwide. It's absolutely worldwide, the alternative process. And people are trying every one of the original photographic processes now. The question of the definition is a tricky one, because photography really isn't about definition. It's about passing a meaning to the viewer. But again, so a lot of the photographs I like have terrible definition. Absolutely terrible definition. But they affect me emotionally in a very different way. So that's on wet plate. You can try and translate. I'll deal with the next question. The next question is the Lee Miller film. The Lee Miller film only deals with a small section of her life. I know her son quite well, which is Tony Penrose. The film is about her time during the Second World War. But Lee Miller was remarkable in so many ways. She was a Vogue model. She was a lover of Man Ray. She was one of the surrealists. She was a fashion photographer. She was a Vogue photojournalist during the Second World War. She was one of the first photographers to go into one of the death camps of the Holocaust. Then she had a big life after the Second World War in England and in Egypt. So what we see in that film is just a very small bit of her life, a very small bit of her life. But it's a very well made, a very good documentary. I don't know how you explain all that.
A ver, Saturnino, ayúdame con la primera.
Mande.
¿Con la respuesta de la primera?
Sí, gracias. Gracias por las dos respuestas.
No, que si puede hacer el resumen de la primera, que es muy técnica.
Yo haga el resumen.
Sí, de la primera. De la segunda está hablando de la película esta de esta fotógrafa, que tuvo una vida bastante larga en la Segunda Guerra Mundial, en los campos de concentración nazis, etc. Y ese documental de que habla el profesor Saturnino es realmente una cápsula de la importancia o de todo lo que hizo esta fotógrafa.
Híjole, para que yo haga el resumen del otro.
Si quiere yo le comento. Porque
lo agradezco.
Lo que estaba comentando el maestro es una técnica fotográfica que se llama colodión húmedo. Que es
¿Cómo se llama?
colodión húmedo en español, sí. Entonces, esa técnica es de las primeras técnicas que empezaron en 1850 y se hace con placas de vidrio o con placas de metal también. Cuando haces placas de vidrio que son muy grandes, la definición es muy buena, si lo sabes hacer, porque es un proceso muy complejo también. Aquí en Veracruz se seca rápido, entonces la emulsión, digamos que se puede partir. Lo que decía el maestro es que la tecnología actual de la fotografía digital ha avanzado lo suficiente como para tener una resolución tan buena como la que en su momento tenía el colodión húmedo o el daguerrotipo incluso, que no se les ve grano, se ve todo así como súper perfecto. Insisto, si se hace bien, porque si no, pues también. La cosa con la técnica es que la fotografía va más allá de la técnica, ¿no? Es lo que quieres decir, algo así dijo, si mal no recuerdo, y no tanto enfocarte en que todo salga súper definido, sino lo que quieres decir y cómo lo vas a decir.
Comunicar.
Lo que quieres comunicar, ¿no? Que no nos debemos quedar en la técnica, ¿no? Sino usar la técnica a nuestro favor.
Yeah, that's very good. That's it. Any other questions?
¿Alguna otra pregunta? Jóvenes, adelante.
Hello, my name is Ronaldo Figueroa. I'm a student of photography. Okay. My question is, how do you start this project?
How do I start? Why did I start the story?
This project.
How did I start?
How do you start this project?
Oh, right. Oh, good question. Good question. I was working in Los Angeles, and the company I worked for went bust. It broke down. And I decided what I wanted to do in life, okay, what I was always interested in. And although I've taken lots and lots of photographs, and I still take lots of photographs, I still do. I don't show my photographs, or very rarely. And my interest is understanding the history of photography. The best way to describe it is a demented hobby. It's like an insanity. Okay? So what I'm trying to do all the time is for me to better understand the history. That's all the project is for. The fact that other companies subscribe to it, big museums subscribe to it, and universities, but it's all about me trying to learn the subject well. And that takes a lot of work. It takes an enormous amount of work. Because what you realize is, within the whole history of photography, because of the nature of publication, most of the publications on the history of photography are in French, German, and English. I'm not saying there are lots of books in Spanish as well, but they're predominantly English, French, and German. But there's risks in that. It means there's enormous subjects that miss out. Like, what was surrealism like in India in the 1930s or 40s? Right? What do we know about the Mexican architectural photography in the 1880s? Because that doesn't occur in lots of these English, French, and German books. So what we have to do is we have to find the gaps within photography and start to fill it in. Now, it is impossible to do it. This isn't a job one could ever complete, ever. But I think what's going to happen is the tools with artificial intelligence are going to be better and better at finding the gaps. Right? And once you can fill in those gaps, you get a far better overall sense of what's actually happening. But as I do my research, and I'm asking these questions every day of different people, you realize how much do you know about what was happening in Poland in the 1920s? Or how do you know what was happening in Guatemala in the 1920s or 1930s? I don't know. Okay, so I have to ask experts on each of these subjects all the time to try and tell me little bits of history. So it's like a puzzle. You're filling in little bits all the time. So that's how I started. It's a hobby.
Ronaldo, que es estudiante de la Facultad de Artes, hizo la pregunta de cómo había que iniciar este proyecto, que es un proyecto muy grande y complejo. Alan menciona que él estaba trabajando en Los Ángeles, la compañía que trabajaba quebró, entonces después de eso se dedicó a este trabajo de su objetivo ha sido tratar de entender, comprender la historia de la fotografía, ¿sí? Y él ha sido un fanático de la fotografía, tomó muchas fotografías, de hecho yo lo recuerdo hace unas décadas, estos gabinetes llenos de diapositivas, así, miles de diapositivas. Entonces siempre ha tomado mucha fotografía. Y dice que sus fotografías no las exhibe, sino bien está enfocado a comprender la historia de la fotografía. Y la inteligencia artificial, bueno, y mencionó que es un trabajo que nunca va a estar completado. Sin embargo, el arribo de la inteligencia artificial va a permitir identificar muchos vacíos o lapsos que no se tiene información, que va a permitir un entendimiento mayor al que se tiene actualmente de la fotografía. Viridiana.
I would like to know what program you use to make possible that work.
Well, I programmed it all. So it wasn't a program, I had to actually write all the software. So the software, technically, it's written in PHP and it's running on MySQL, so it's running on big databases for Amazon. So it's all very specialist to do what I need. I didn't buy a particular piece of software, I had to write it.
Ok, la maestra Viridiana ha preguntado que qué programa usaba para almacenar toda esta información. Alan menciona que él ha creado el programa usando PHP, creo que lo tiene almacenado en la nube, y usando SQL, ¿sí? Porque realmente para el tema que él maneja no hay un software que le pueda responder a sus necesidades, ¿sí? Algo que no mencioné hace poco es que la base de datos que él tiene, sus suscriptores, o sea, quienes pagan por el servicio, son museos, galerías, etcétera, universidades del área de fotografía para dar acceso a sus estudiantes y profesores.
Yeah. One thing about it is the size of the collection is very large. I did a project 2 or 3 years ago just on stereo photographers, just on stereo, all the period of stereo photographers. And when I did it ended up with over 144 million internal links just on the website. You know, it's vast. It's a big project.
Dice que es un proyecto descomunal, muy grande. Dice que hace tiempo hizo una serie de historias sobre fotografía, que sería estereotípica o estereofotografía, y dice que generó 940,000 ligas, o sea, casi 1,000,000 de ligas para contar la historia de este tema.
¿Y la UV tiene acceso a eso?
Pregunta que si la Universidad Veracruzana se suscribe.
Why are you telling me this in Spanish?
Because okay, she asked if okay, she asked if the Universidad Veracruzana is a subscriber
No.
in the service.
No.
No. But it could be. It depends on you. Depende de
All
ustedes.
depends on you. That's right. Yeah. Any other questions?
The girl first. She was first, and then the boy.
Hello, my name is Paulina. I study here at the Faculty of Communications. I have a question. It's about what do you recommend to future photographers? So.
Now, what aspect? There's multiple answers to the question. There's the answers, technical answers, there's the social answers, there's career answers, there's all sorts of questions. So what particular question are you interested in?
The technical.
Wow, that's an interesting one. Do you want to become a photographer full-time?
Maybe. I'm still thinking about it. I really enjoy it.
Oh yeah, so do I. No, it's a tricky one as to how you're going to survive in photography with a very competitive world. Right? Because I think what's going to happen is if you imagine your mobile phone, and if you imagine your phone talk to all the other phones in this room, right, okay? And as it talked, it said, oh, what's the best photograph taken in this room? So it takes your photograph, and puts it on your phone. You don't need to take a photograph. Because it's already been taken the best photograph in the room. Right? So I think what's going to happen is you're going to go for a walk through Veracruz, and you'll never take your phone out of your pocket. But when you get home, you will have a wonderful collection of photographs of where you walked. Right? Now, what does that mean with regard to a profession? Like, how do you earn money in that type of world? Because if you think about photography now, it's changing unbelievably. I don't know how many of you use AI. Can you ask this question? Hold your hand up if you use
¿Cuántos de
AI.
ustedes usan inteligencia artificial?
You should all be
Levanten
using
su
it.
mano.
Every one of you should be using it.
Dice, todos ustedes deberían estar usando inteligencia artificial.
You should be using it for multiple reasons. You should be using it for research, because in terms of writing papers, understanding your subject. But the other reason why you should be using it is to investigate how it is changing photography. Yeah, because it's fundamentally changing photography, right? So if you think about it, if you're working in advertising or commercial photography, it's going to be very difficult to make money in the future. It's going to be really, because if you look over the last month, the changes in the software to create commercials, advertising, video have changed incredibly. So what you have to have a career in photography, you've got to be aware of these changes, and you've got to know exactly what gap you're going for. Exactly what gap you're going for. Otherwise, you're going to have a very difficult time competing. Let's have this question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is.
Hago una serie de recomendaciones, pero creo que la final es que usen la inteligencia artificial para encontrar ese nicho donde ustedes pudieran trabajar, porque las cosas están evolucionando muy rápido, ¿sí? Entonces realmente hay que estar invirtiendo tiempo en estar monitoreando, sobre todo con la inteligencia artificial, qué oportunidades pueden encontrar con nichos.
Hello, my name is Daniel. I'm a photography student. And my question is, have you seen some results of the predictions that you can get with your projects about the gaps of photography? Have you seen some results over this?
Yeah, I mean, what I did the other day as an experiment, and it was purely an experiment, I asked an AI system, I asked Perplexity and Gemini and ChatGPT, and I asked it for what the gaps were within my website. Now this is, my website's enormous, it's hundreds of thousands of pages. You know, it's enormous. And of course within about 40 seconds, it came up with very clear gaps. Okay? And if you try with any of the major AI systems to say, what are the trends in photography? What topics should be investigated? What hasn't been done within landscape photography? So you often ask negative questions. What's missing? And then you see, you look at that subject and then say, if that subject is missing, is there a commercial opportunity for me? Right, okay? Because what you have to do is you have to understand the gaps. It's the only way you're going to understand the possibilities. But I think if you don't do that, and you just say, oh, I'm going to be an advertising photographer, that is going to be really difficult. Because if you look at the quality now, you should try every run. How many of you have used Sora? Sora? Sora. S-O-R-A, Sora.
¿Algunos de ustedes han usado la aplicación Sora? S-O-R-A.
Okay, you all ought to try Sora.
Creo que deben usarla.
Yeah, because there's a lot of AI packages now where you could type in, I want a daguerreotype of a landscape with a stream. I want my copper plate scratched, right? I want it at a certain type of frame, and it will create you an image. And it may not be the best image, right? Okay? But it'll give you a choice of images, and then you can keep refining your query to get better and better at what you want. And this means you can do it within half an hour to create the absolute image you want. Whereas in photography, you just couldn't do it. You really couldn't do it. And it's also the fact that the cameras within these phones are going to change very quickly, and they are doing. Because all the cameras in the phones now have AI in them. More and more sophisticated forms of AI, more and more sophisticated forms of digital editing. So what you'll be able to do is say, take the photograph of this room and say, okay, I want all these people to have the heads of elephants. But it'll do it. It will just do it. So how do you compete with that? Now, I don't want to make you miserable. I don't want to make you sad, but I certainly think you have to know. And if you don't know, I'd ask your teachers to make damn sure that you do. Because you have to try these things. So what I suggest is you form small groups, like maybe groups of 5 or 6 people. You could be groups of friends or enemies, it doesn't matter. But you form small groups where you sit around the computer together and you investigate these forms. So you just learn. Or even if you don't learn it well, so you're aware of the possibilities.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Ok, un resumen rápido. I'm lost. Estoy perdido. Le han preguntado que si cómo se ha hecho el análisis del sitio web. Menciona que ha usado ChatGPT, Gemini y Perplexity para evaluar su sitio web y tratar de descubrir cuáles son los vacíos que tiene dentro de su sitio web, que son miles y miles de páginas que tiene en el sitio web. Y estas aplicaciones le han dado una respuesta rápida y buena. Luego mencionó un software que recomienda para todos los que estudian fotografía, que se llama Sora, que si no lo han hecho, sé que lo hagan, que les permite generar composiciones de técnica, objeto, etc. Y les sale, quizá no perfecto, pero les da opciones para que ustedes lo hagan. Y la conclusión final es que dice que la inteligencia artificial es tan poderosa, ¿sí? Los teléfonos están cambiando también ya con la inteligencia artificial, que ustedes se preguntarán, bueno, ¿qué podemos aportar, qué podemos hacer en el campo de la fotografía? Dice que es esa pregunta no con la idea de que se sientan miserables o que desistan, sino simplemente para que estén al tanto de los adelantos y buscar oportunidades. La verdad es que cada tecnología trae oportunidades positivas como negativas. Es cuestión de tener esa capacidad.
Any other questions? Oh, go for it.
Una pregunta.
Doesn't matter.
Hi, my name is Roger. I'm from the communication career. And how we can find based on your experience, how we can find our self-style in photography?
As I mentioned, it's a good question. As I mentioned, what you have to do is you have to be aware of the styles of others. Okay? So that means you look at as many books on photography as you can, and you try to see what you enjoy most. You just look through them until you pick maybe 100 images you really like. Then you analyze those images very carefully, and you may need to write some text about it. You analyze it, or you may need to say you took 4 images that you really liked, and you fed them into an AI system. And you said, why do I like these images? What's the similarity between these images? Then you can start to train not only the AI system, but yourself in what may be the gap that you're specifically interested in, what really interests you. It is unbelievably rare to find a photographer who's got a unique style. I mean, really rare. You're somebody like a Maholi Nash, you're somebody like a Man Ray, you're a Grassai, or Bill Grant. There are not many photographers who are absolutely unique. And so what you have to do is find what makes you unique through a care. See, and it's self-reflection. It's not only what you enjoy doing, but it's also for thinking, when you show your photographs of others, which do they like and why? But you have to be sincere. They have to be absolutely honest with you and say, no, that's too like this other photographer. So you need a group of friends who are absolutely honest and critical with you, right? Okay? Until you get a self-awareness of what you really like. So when you think about it, if you went out today and you had a choice to photograph anything at all, what would you photograph?
Maybe nature.
Yeah, maybe nature. Yeah, you're in a competitive market, right? So what you have to do is decide, are you going to specialize in trees, chimpanzees? You have to decide exactly on the topic. But you may decide the only thing you want to photograph is animals that are almost extinct. Well, there is a photographer, James Ballock, who does exactly that. So what you have to do is find the gaps and look at the photographers who really, really interest you. You'll get into it, but it's learning. It's all about seeing images. Thanks for the question.
6 minutes.
Okay. One final question.
¿Alguna pregunta final para cerrar? El joven del fondo. Para terminar,
I realize you have to go to class.
Hi, my name is Ram, and my question is, at this time at your project, how do you feel about your work, and would you like to do something else with it?
I think that's an interesting question. The reason why I chose this topic was because it is impossible to finish. It's absolutely impossible to finish. I'll never finish it. And I think that's what you want in life. You want a topic that you could never possibly complete. And because every day I know I'm going to learn something new. And because of this project, I've met curators, gallery owners, authors, photographers all over the world, in every type of discipline. So it's like, it is a hobby, it's an enormous amount of work, but it gives you incredible satisfaction, because you're going to learn something new every day. Absolutely every day. And it's not only that you learn something new, a collector, maybe in Poland, will send me a couple of images, and I'll go, wow, I never knew about that. I never thought of that. And it's not in any of the books I've ever seen. So it's a gap in my knowledge, and I love gaps in my knowledge. That's what's important. It's about the learning. Thank you for the question.
Ok, un resumen de las últimas 2 preguntas. La penúltima del joven que preguntaba cómo escoger un área dentro de la fotografía. Alan recomendaba que eligiera, no sé, 100 fotografías o 4 fotografías que más le gustaran, ¿sí? porque con eso identificaba su gusto, su pasión por ese enfoque. Que una forma que puede hacerlo es agarrar esas 4 fotografías y preguntarle a una aplicación de inteligencia artificial la importancia de esas fotografías, el estilo, ¿sí? Y quizá el uso comercial que se las puedan dar. Menciona que pues, realmente tiene que ser algo que le apasione, ¿sí? para trabajarlo. Mencionó el caso creo que el joven está interesado en la naturaleza, le mencionaba que es un área muy competitiva y que él tiene que elegir dentro de eso si va a fotografiar árboles, chimpancés o cuál es la subárea dentro de ese gran campo, ¿sí? La última pregunta fue sobre, lo que entendí es cuál sería la siguiente etapa o qué es lo que buscaría Alan en su sitio web. Y él menciona que él eligió este tema porque es interminable y que le ha permitido aprender todo el tiempo y tener una serie de relaciones a nivel internacional, de los cuales va aprendiendo espacios que tiene vacíos de conocimiento y que va creciendo. Entonces es un tema, él considera que su proyecto es un proyecto interminable y que eso le permite estar en él constantemente. ¿Sí? Bien, vamos a dar por concluida la conferencia. Yo le voy a dar aquí una constancia a nombre de la Universidad Veracruzana y la Facultad de Pedagogía y del Doctorado en Sistemas y Ambientes Educativos, Alan, por haberse tomado estas 2 horas en un viaje de placer que no tenía por qué trabajar, sin embargo nos los ha dedicado. I'm saying that you are on holiday, but you took 2 hours to do this work, so you have here a certificate for your presence here at this university. Un aplauso para Alan. Dice que ha sido un placer. Bien, antes de decir las últimas palabras, quisiera agradecer al maestro Sergio Lara, que fue el contacto para realizar esta conferencia de la Facultad de Comunicación, y la maestra Alejandra Olivio, creo que salió en este momento, sí, que ella fue el contacto en la Facultad de Artes junto con la Facultad de Pedagogía. Les agradezco su disponibilidad, a los directores de la facultad que nos apoyaron, y a los maestros que vinieron. Qué bueno que estuvieran aquí presentes. Yo espero que visiten el sitio web de Alan para que lo conozcan y vean el trabajo que tiene, que realmente le ha dedicado miles de horas. ¿Sí? Bien, muchas gracias. Okay, but now, can we have a picture just to exercise the field of photography? Okay.
Okay.
Just to give you that certificate.
Thank you very much. Yes, oh my word.
You have to get
Official.
okay.
Gracias. Thank you all, folks.
Muchas gracias a todos por asistir, les agradecemos su presencia, espero que se lleven algo, sobre todo para definir el futuro de lo que ustedes pueden aportar a la fotografía. Muchas gracias, Alan. Thank you so much.